Hello everyone, and welcome back to another session. In this session, we will discuss the functioning of Merkle trees and hashing as well as their applications on blockchains. Let's start this session by understanding what Merkle tree is. You will recall from previous sessions that the Merkle tree is an important data structure used in many ways in a blockchain. A Merkle tree is a data structure that allows efficiently storing large data along with secure verification of its content. In a blockchain, it is used to store a summary of all the transactions included in a block. Using the Merkle tree, a digital fingerprint of the transaction set is created. This lets any user quickly verify if a transaction is included in a block without the need to iterate over all the transactions. Merkle tree is constructed by repeatedly hashing pairs of adjacent nodes arranged in a tree data structure. This is done until there is only one node left, which is the root of the tree. It is called the Merkle root. They are constructed in the bottom-up fashion, from hashes of individual transactions. Each leaf node is the hash of each transaction in the block, and each non-leaf node is a hash of its children. Merkle trees are binary, and so they need an even number of leaf nodes. In case of an odd number of transactions in a block, the last one is duplicated to even the leaf nodes. Let's construct a Merkle tree for a block that contains 220 transactions. We will first group these transactions as 110 pairs. Now, these transaction pairs will be hashed into 110 new 64-character hashes. These 110 new hashes will be paired up and hashed into 55 pairs. The last will be duplicated, and the pairing and hashing process will be repeated, cutting the number of hashes in half each time until only one hash remains. This hash is the Merkle root. The Merkle root is stored in a block header and summarizes all of the transactions included in that block. This maintains the integrity of the data. Merkle tree significantly lowers the data size that is used for verification of transactions. It separates data from its validation. After it is created, it can be stored locally or in a distributed fashion across systems. Let us check out the benefits that using a Merkle tree in blockchain offers. Using this data structure proves both the integrity and validity of data while significantly reducing the memory requirements. Often required by lightweight blockchain clients, the Merkle tree allows the verification of transactions in a block without downloading the entire block data. It is essential in blockchains to prove that a log is consistent and complete. Merkle trees are incorporated in the system to help verify that the latest log is built upon an earlier version and the constituent data is recorded serially. This means that Merkle trees should provide a way to prove that the previous records have not been tampered with anyhow. This is beneficial for both blockchain users and miners. Using the Merkle tree, users can check the validity of individual parts of a block. They can also check transactions by using hashes from other branches of the Merkle tree. Similarly, miners use it for progressively calculating the transaction hashes as they are being received from their peers. Let's look at an example of 4 transactions in a block, named as A, B, C, and D. Each of these is hashed, and the hash is stored in each leaf node, resulting in hash A, B, C, and D. However, doing so is quite inefficient as we are storing a lot of redundant information. Instead, we can use the power of hashes to combine hashes together so that instead of storing individual hashes, we can just store one single hash that contains the information related to all the transactions in the block. So, moving forward, let's continue with the example of 4 transactions in a block. We'll start by taking the hash of all 4 transactions. Now instead of storing all the hashes inside the block, we start combining them. We first combine the hashes of transactions A and B to get the hash of B, and then the hashes of transactions C and D to get the hash CD. Finally, we combine the hashes of B and CD to get the Merkle root, or root hash, which acts as a fingerprint of all the transactions in the ledger. Changing even a single character in any of the transactions completely changes the Merkle root, and therefore it helps maintain data integrity. In this way, consecutive blocks can also be processed. They can be hashed together and represented as a root of the Merkle tree. The hash function used here is a cryptographically secure function, usually SHA-2. So, now this hash of ABCD is like a single root value through which we can see that if a transaction is changed, the entire hash will be different. For example, if we remove some components from transaction A, the complete hash of ABCD will be different because A, B, C, and D are interdependent on each other. Now, we have the hash as the Merkle root, timestamp, difficulty, and transaction count. We have all this information with us inside the block, and apart from this information, We have one special value, which is the nonce value. The nonce value is not known to the miner. The nonce value is calculated as per the difficulty target of the blockchain. Miners are trying to find a number such that when added to the block header, it makes the hash of the header start with the specified number of zeros. A nonce can only be randomly guessed using CPU power. If miners start from the nonce value of 1, they keep on increasing the value until they find a number that makes the hash of the entire block starting with the specified number of zeros, thereby solving the block. The difficulty of the blockchain is established by how many zeros the hash of a block should start with. That's why mining a Bitcoin or an Ethereum is time-consuming, because this nonce value, which is being calculated by the miner, is in the form of 2 to the power 68, which is a large value to be calculated, and usually miners need to guess a certain number of leading zeros inside the block. Let's look at why the Merkle tree play a vital role in blockchain. If we consider Bitcoin without a Merkle tree, each node across the network would require a complete copy of the blockchain storing every single transaction. The amount of the same data to be stored by everyone would have been huge and growing. To check the validity of transactions in its copy, a node can reach out to its peers to get their copies of the ledger. This would require comparing each entry of its record to the records of its peers. Any discrepancy between these ledgers invalidates the node's copy of the ledger. To verify any transaction or block, it needs to be sent across the network to all the participating nodes. This involves messaging passing across the network. Now, at each node, the transaction or block has to be verified using the ledger data. This verification becomes easier with the Merkle trees, which effectively separate the data from its proof. Using it, in order to prove the validity of a transaction, it is only required to send some small amounts of information across the network. It also allows proving that the ledgers of two peers are identical using minimal computation power and network bandwidth. Now, let's deeply understand what hashing is. As we know, blockchain technology is defined as how digital transactions are verified and stored by using distributed ledger technologies. But to understand how blockchain works, we need to have some knowledge of the concepts of hashing and related terminologies. Hashing is the process in which an input of any length is converted and represented as a corresponding fixed length output. This technique is used in blockchains to convert the varying length transactions to a fixed length output known as a hash. Irrespective of the length of the input transaction, the hash is a fixed size. Bitcoin uses SHA-256, which is a secure hashing algorithm. Using SHA-256, any length of input always produces a 256 bits long output. By hashing a transaction, it becomes easy to keep track of the transaction, which can now be easily traced or recalled using its hash. If any other hash function is used, the output size would depend upon that. There are many cryptographic hash functions that can also be used to produce an output of the desired length. Hashing data reduces the data size of the data being stored on the blockchain. This data is timestamped and can be hashed for future reference. It makes permanent data storage simpler, more economical, and less bulky. Hash rate determines how fast and smoothly the mining process is running. The hash rate in the network determines how difficult it is to mine a block. A hash function will take any transaction data input and restate it to generate an output of a fixed length. Hashing is the process of using the hash function on a transaction. Its output is called a hash. During mining a block, the block is hashed multiple times with different values of nonce each time, to determine a valid hash. One of the successful nonce values is what makes the block valid along with other checks. Using a cryptographic hash function in blockchains provides security to a transaction and provides the desired feature of immutability. Hashing is also used in Merkle trees, where transaction hashes are arranged together in a short and secure hash. This provides the much required scalability in blockchain and its light implementations used for mobiles and other light clients. Hashing assists in determining cryptographic signatures that determine valid transactions. That was all for this session. Thank you.